there was one particular phrase that stuck with me, and that was mapping the underworld.
Yeah.
Can you explain that one for us?
I so can. I think that these myths do offer a map of the underworld. And perhaps the scary thing about the underworld is this sense that if you go there, you never return.
Right.
And it's true that when we die, well, I would say that's true. We never return in that way. But in these myths that we work with, in the underworld myths, people and goddesses and gods do return. There's a sense, and if we look at our own lives, I really think all of us, have had experiences in our life that I would call powerful underworld or dark goddess experiences, where we have had to surrender basically everything that we were, that we had, that we thought we knew, and go into this place of unknowing and death-like place, where eventually, if we're still awake, alive enough to be listening to this or reading these books or talking to each other, we actually did emerge. And it's a really haphazard process when it happens to us in real life. Like somebody dies, we have some health crisis, we lose a job, who knows what happens, our heart gets broken, and we tumble into this experience really unprepared, really not knowing what the hell is going on, and really mainly trying to get out of it before we've even been there or done it. And so I have this theory that phrase comes from, mapping the underworld, that if we were able to map our own underworlds, our own underworld journeys, the ones we've been through, and ritually the ones that we're making and creating, the next time that hits us in real life, we actually will have a map. We actually will understand the process a little bit. And as I say, I think the maps in general terms are written down in mythology, but that's really pretty different than being familiar with it yourself. And so I believe really quite strongly that electively taking these journeys to the underworld, possibly when we're in a crisis, but also possibly when we're not in a crisis, can really teach us not just like the terrain of the underworld, oh, this happens and then this happens, but how we respond to it. Oh, like I'm somebody who struggles to give up anything, so the way down is really hard for me. If I could do some work around release and surrender, what is that anyway? Why am I holding on to things? Is it because blah, 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 let me do some work, like whatever it is. So that the journey itself will teach us what we have to work on, but also we can create a map, either just by doing it many times and getting a feel for it, or by picking up a pen and paper. And sometimes people draw them out, their maps, and they send me photos of them and, say, oh, this is my map of stage 1, or here's the gates, I've made a map of how it was. And, and of course, people write it down in their journals or write poetry or songs or whatever it might be about it, or create gardens. Who knows what they do, like all sorts of ways of making a map of how to travel into this place of the underworld, of surrender, of becoming one with the mysteries and allowing the return to occur. So that's what my phrase is. And I think I made a joke in that book, a little in joke, where I said, wouldn't it be great if you could just type into your search engine maps of the underworld and you could get up a whole lot of people's poems and pictures and, oh, this is how they've done it, or this is what they've done. I haven't tried typing it in lately, but, you might be surprised what comes up. I might. And delighted if there's anything comes up, because there didn't used to be anything. It used to be a blank slate. So I was really encouraging us to not just do our own privately, but to talk about, with our friends, beloveds, coven mates, whoever, our readers, our listeners, oh, this is something that happens to me. This is part of my map of the underworld. Perhaps it's the same as yours. Perhaps it's similar. Perhaps it's completely different. But then what is your map? How does it take you?
I think it helps, doesn't it, to know that other people are in the same place or have dealt with similar issues.
And just to be inspired about like the intricacy and detail and some of the content that people record in these maps. And, I think that's one thing about writing a quite personal book, and perhaps you found this as well, that it's almost like the more personal I go in my books, the more it gives, I think, permission to other people to go personal in their journeys. Whereas when it's really general, it just kind of stays really general. And I want to say,
people like to know they're not alone.
But also it gives real permission and example of how to travel this, like the content of it. And I want to say that this is actually really, really good timing for me, this little podcast, as it happens, because I've taught the Dark Goddess versions of it as it is in that book many, many times, both in person and online, dozens of times. But I have finally got together an online on-demand course for Journey to the Dark Goddess, which really is, I'm planning for it to go live on the solstice, which is a few days away from our recording this. So that would mean that, like, I constantly get emails from people saying, oh, when are you running it again? Oh, can I do this? Or more emails about the Dark Goddess than anything ever.
And where can people find information about that?
It will be on my website, which is janemeredith.com, and there'll be a link to on-demand courses, and it will be there. So far, it's the only on-demand course. But I was like, how many more times can I run this in my lifetime? Like, even if I ran it 3 times a year, is that enough? Maybe I'll just kind of find a way that it can be there. And I'll still continue to run it from time to time, online or in person or whatever. But this does mean that someone can purchase the course and then have it there and do all of these activities in their own time, in their own way, at their own pace, basically.
Brilliant. Phenomenal.
Thanks, Rachel.
We all need to do it.
Yeah.
All of us. It's, let's make it mandatory for everyone to do.